Baku was a city that never truly slept. Its nights were usually filled with glowing lights, the hum of traffic, and the rhythm of life that echoed along the Caspian Sea. But that night, something felt wrong. The streets were silent, not because of a traffic jam, but because there was no traffic at all. Major highways were blocked by armored vehicles. Armed soldiers stood guard at intersections, turning back anyone who dared to approach. No official announcement had been made. Phones buzzed with confusion. On social media, one line kept appearing again and again. Razom perikryli, Baku in hysteria. Suddenly shut down, Baku in hysteria. Windows creaked open as people peered into the darkness, whispering questions they had no answers for. In the narrow alleys of the old city, elderly women muttered in trembling voices, "Is it war? A coup? Or something even worse?" In the heart of the city, a young journalist named Layla tightened the strap of her camera and walked with cautious steps. She felt an instinct deep inside her: this wasn't a simple security measure. This was the beginning of something far bigger. Her phone vibrated. A new message appeared from an unknown number. "This is only the surface, the truth lies inside." Layla's heart raced. Someone knew more. Someone wanted her to find it. And in that moment, she made a choice: she would not run. She would uncover whatever was hidden behind this sudden lockdown. But the city seemed to be resisting her. As she turned into a deserted street, the streetlights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed Baku. For the first time, the city of fire held its breath. Darkness had never felt so heavy. The familiar glow of Baku's skyline, the flame towers, the neon-lit boulevards, was gone, swallowed by a silence that pressed on every window and every heart. The city seemed paralyzed, like a beast waiting to pounce. Layla's footsteps echoed unnaturally loud as she made her way deeper into the maze of streets. Her phone's weak flashlight cut through the black, illuminating only fragments: a shutter half closed, a poster torn by the wind, and the flicker of movement that vanished before she could focus on it. "Hello," she called, her voice trembling despite her resolve. No answer, only the whisper of the sea somewhere in the distance. Her phone buzzed again. Another message: "Don't trust anyone, they're watching." Layla's throat went dry. Who was sending these messages? And who exactly was watching? Suddenly, a noise, a faint metallic clatter. She swung her light toward the source and froze. At the end of the alley stood a man in a long coat, his face hidden beneath a hood. He wasn't moving, just standing, watching. "Who are you?" Layla demanded, forcing her voice to sound steady. The figure didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hand slowly and pointed toward the old quarter, the ancient heart of the city. Then, as if melting into the darkness itself, he was gone. Layla's chest tightened. Something in her gut told her that following the signal meant stepping into danger she could never return from. But the journalist in her burned brighter than her fear. She had no choice but to chase the trail. When she reached the edge of the old quarter, the streets were eerily abandoned. Doors barred, curtains drawn, and there, in the center of the square, stood a monument draped with fresh red cloth that hadn't been there yesterday. She stepped closer. The fabric rippled faintly, as if breathing. And beneath it, she could swear she heard something like whispers. The whispers grew clearer as Layla circled the monument. They rose and fell like waves, sometimes frantic, sometimes mournful, never in a language she fully recognized. It was as though the stones themselves were speaking, ancient, restless, and alive. Her hands trembled as she reached for the red cloth. The fabric was warm, far warmer than the night air. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Then, pulling it aside, she uncovered the monument beneath. It wasn't the statue she remembered. The stone figure of an old statesman, which had stood for decades, was gone. In its place was something else, an obelisk carved with strange symbols, glowing faintly with a pulse like a heartbeat. Layla staggered back, her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't possible. Had the statue been removed overnight? Replaced in secret? Or had it transformed? Her phone buzzed again. Another message: "Do not touch the stone. They awaken when the city sleeps." Layla's skin prickled. They awaken. Who were they? Before she could process, a chill swept through the square. From the shadows of the surrounding alleys, figures began to appear. At first, they looked like ordinary people. Men, women, even children, but their movements were wrong, their steps too synchronized, their faces too expressionless. Their eyes glowed faintly, mirroring the pulse of the obelisk. Layla's legs struggled to keep pace as the hooded man pulled her through the twisting alleys of the old quarter. Behind them, the whispers still echoed: though fainter now, as if the creatures had melted back into the stones of the city itself. "Who are you?" she gasped, trying to free her arm. "Not here," he replied curtly, his eyes scanning the rooftops. "Walls in this city have ears. Sometimes more than ears." They ducked into a crumbling cellar beneath a deserted tea house. The man struck a match, lighting an oil lamp. For the first time, Layla could see his face, scarred, weathered, with eyes that carried the weight of years. "My name is Armin," he said. "And I am what's left of the keepers." "The keepers?" Layla frowned. He nodded. "Centuries ago, long before these streets were built, there were stones buried beneath Baku. Stones that hold voices, memories. They are not human, but they feed on human fear. My people swore to contain them, to guard the seals." He paused, his jaw tightening. "But now the seals are failing." Layla shook her head. "You're telling me soldiers have blocked the city because of talking stones?" Armin's gaze burned into hers. "You saw them yourself. Those weren't soldiers in the square. They are vessels, empty shells filled by the whispers. The lockdown isn't to protect the people. It's to keep the infection inside." A chill crept up Layla's spine. The glowing obelisk, the vacant eyes of the crowd, it all connected. "Why me?" she asked. "Why did you point me here?" Armin reached into his coat and pulled out a fragment of stone, etched with the same glowing runes. "Because you're already marked," he said. "They chose you the moment you touched the cloth. The city will close tighter around you until there's no escape." The cellar shook again, louder this time, as if the city above were groaning under an invisible weight. The whispers seeped through the walls, curling into Layla's ears, into her skull, until she could no longer tell whether the sound was outside or inside. She pressed her hands to her temples. "Stop, stop," but the voices only multiplied, overlapping in strange tongues. And then, amidst the chaos, one voice stood out. Clear, familiar. It was her own. "Layla," the whisper was gentle, coaxing. "You don't need him. You don't need anyone. Just listen to us." Her breath hitched. She staggered back, nearly colliding with the stone wall. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the cellar, bending in shapes that looked like hands reaching for her. "Fight it," Armin snapped, gripping her shoulder. "They'll try to break you from the inside. First." But his voice felt distant, muffled, as though underwater. The cellar flickered, one moment solid, the next replaced by a vision. She saw herself standing in the middle of Baku's flame towers, except they were no longer buildings of glass and steel. They were pillars of stone, covered in the same pulsing runes, bleeding faint red light into the night sky. The ground split with a sound like shattering glass. Outside, screams echoed, then were swallowed by the chorus of whispers rising to a deafening roar. Baku trembled, every stone vibrating with a heartbeat not its own. Layla clutched the wall for balance, but her vision blurred again. She no longer saw the cellar, or even Armin. Instead, the city revealed itself in its true form. A vast, living labyrinth, veins of light pulsing through streets, towers twisting like serpents. The obelisks were everywhere now, erupting from the ground, their runes blazing. "Layla," Armin's voice cut through the chaos, distant but urgent. He held the stone fragment, its glow fighting back the shadows that crawled closer. "You still have a choice. Take it, sever the bond." She tried to move, but her body refused. The whispers were no longer outside her, they were her. Her own heartbeat synced with the pulse of the obelisks. Each breath she drew wasn't her own, but the city's. "Why fight us?" The voices soothed. "You are Baku now. You can carry us. You can live forever in fire and stone." Tears welled in her eyes. She remembered her camera hanging useless at her side, the last photograph she had taken, a flash in the dark, proof that the world was still real. Was it, or had she already slipped beyond? Armin lunged forward, pressing the glowing shard against her chest. Pain seared through her, white-hot, as if the stone was burning her soul. For a moment, the whispers shrieked in protest, faltering. She felt herself split in two, the woman she was, and the vessel she was becoming. "Fight," Armin shouted. "You're stronger than them." But in that final instant, Layla understood the truth. The city hadn't chosen her to resist. It had chosen her to replace. Her scream shattered into silence. Her eyes glowed with the same crimson light as the obelisks. The whispers fell quiet, as though satisfied. When Armin staggered back, breathless, the woman standing before him was no longer Layla. Her face was calm, her movements deliberate, her voice a blend of hers and 1,000 others. "The city is awake," she said softly, almost tenderly. "And it has found its voice." Above, Baku roared alive, its streets pulsing, its towers blazing, a city reborn not of stone and steel, but of whispers. And in that moment, the city claimed its first daughter.